today we have different groups of people living together. The State of the Union, it's a union, the United States. It's you know, technically it's probably multiple countries within a country already, you know, but somehow we find a way to be together as one country. And if you guys want that to continue, then we need to continue to find a way, you know, to work it out to the point where we can be one country. Okay. This way of thinking is not good for the species. It's not good for the survival of the species, and it's going to lead in the opposite direction. You know, there's been many species that has come and gone in the history of Earth. Okay, you know, and we like to look like we like to think that we, been here forever. We're indestructible or whatever, but it's just not. It's not the case. I mean, you look at the history of the Earth, and this, look at the dinosaurs. There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees. And for us to be able to have durability and to be able to survive, then we have to find some unity. We got to find some common ground. We got to find that common humanity.
Charlie Kirk might have been a groyper. Not a Democrat, not a member of the left, as the whole right wing and all of X-Twitter went ballistic, insisting was the case. They went way out there and said that was who it was. Nancy Mace slandering the entire Democratic Party.
I'm going to say this. Democrats own what happened today. I am devastated. My kids have called panicking. All the kids of every conservative in the country called panicking. Just because you speak your mind on an issue doesn't mean you get shot.
By that logic, do Republicans own the shooting of the two Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota? Isn't this on both sides?
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm asking.
We don't know what condition Charlie Kirk is in right now. Some raging leftist loot.
Let's see, 1 second. Here, let me check this. Can y'all hear me? 1 second. Okay. Sounds kind of loud. Turn it down a little bit. I don't know how that sounds to y'all. Hopefully it's good.
Lunatic put a bullet through his neck, and you want to talk about Republicans right now?
No, I'm asking.
No, not at all.
You said the Democrats.
No, this is on. Democrats own this.
But isn't there a problem with political violence across the spectrum?
Yeah, we're talking about Charlie Kirk right now. That's the subject of this that we're talking about right now. Democrats own this 100%.
This shit is like enough is enough. And now I have to deal with real safety concerns. It sounds like the shooter was a tranny or pro-tranny. And just because I want to protect women, that I'm worried about getting murdered? Are you fucking kidding me? It's out of control, and enough is enough. And I'm going to double down on this. I'm going to be more vigilant than ever. I'm going to be louder than I've ever been until this shit stops. It's got to stop.
Another member of Congress slandering the whole Democratic Party.
Well, what for us? Well, everything has changed. If we didn't know it already, there is no longer any middle ground. Some of the American left are undoubtedly well-meaning people, but their ideology is pure evil. They hate the good, the truth, and the beautiful, and embrace the evil, the false, and the ugly. And they literally will kill those with whom they disagree, just as their predecessor leftists, Marx and Stalin and Lenin and Pol Pot and Fidel Castro did. We must know that.
Lots of slander was happening. And now it looks like it might have been a groyper who basically maybe didn't think Charlie Kirk was right-wing enough. We're also seeing that some of the people who are making the biggest threats, the Laura Loomis of the world, were attacking Charlie Kirk literally weeks before, saying he wasn't right-wing enough. Because even though he would say...
Absolute fact, it's worse. It's worse. Were these blacks trying to go rob her? Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact. Black crime is a major issue in our country. Why are you pushing criminal justice reform exactly? Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Now, the southern border is, of course, the great replacement. They're trying to replace us demographically. They're trying to make the country less white. It is an anti-white agenda. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Taylor Swift is now engaged to Travis Kelce. This is something that I hope will make Taylor Swift more conservative. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge. America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever. Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters. In Leviticus 18 is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Can we get that picture up, Ryan, of that Marvel's Avenger team? Now, I don't know who the person is on the left. Is the person on the left that came and did the interview with Joe? The TikTok? Your government is being run by freaks.
I gotta say, you know, a lot of times those comments, they end up being like body shaming comments, because it's like you just look at somebody and you're like, oh, they look like a man or whatever, and you know, and instead of being straightforward about how you feel about it, you take it all the way to the level of, you know, they must be transsexual, they must be, you know, going through a process or have gone through the process or whatever. And it's like, I don't know, it bothers me because it's one of those things that keeps on popping up. Like, regardless of how you feel about the issue, just like, you know, it's like I say, it's you look at a woman and she doesn't fit your typical image in your mind of what a woman is supposed to look like or whatever, and then immediately, I mean, it kind of goes both ways. We're in the world where, you know, you have people who are transitioning, so but in the past they would have just said they look like a man or whatever, you know. I don't know, it bothers me.
It's like immediately I have like a flashback to a country where weren't able to do Bud Light commercials. What does being trans even mean? Is that even a real thing? It means you need therapy. We must ban trans affirming care the entire country. I do think that there is a direct correlation between someone's testosterone and their politics. On young men, the lower their testosterone, the more likely they are to be Democratic.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got
Lower the lower testosterone you have, the more likely you're going to be Democrat. That's actually funny. It's pretty funny, but I mean, so basically, you know, if you're weak, you're soft if you're a Democrat. So what about the women? What about the women Republicans? That don't make sense on its face.
and she was going to give birth and she would and she was going to give birth and she was going to live. Would you want her to go through that and carry her baby?
That's awfully graphic.
But it's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered. When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous, there was less break-ins. Why is that?
So I'm sorry, are you trying to say that blacks thrive under subjugation?
No, I'm not. I'm saying I'm asking you the question. The data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened? Something changed.
Yeah, what data is that? You know, I've heard this argument time and time again. It's one of those things that just keeps getting regurgitated. You know, that's what they do. They regurgitate these talking points. You know, somebody that they respect or look up to, or they know that's intelligent, that knows stuff. They heard them say this thing and they're like, that sounds good. But it's just one of those things that goes along with, what you already think, what you already believe, your prejudice and justification after the fact. It's like when you do research and you're just looking for stuff to support your argument, and that's not what research really is. Your argument is proved or disproved or whatever. You look for the information, you look for the, you use approved sources, quote unquote, but good information, and you try to support your argument, but if the data shows up, then by the end of your research, you have to be like, if you're honest, okay, I was wrong, the data shows this or whatever. But when a lot of people do research this way too, even in academics, where they're just looking for information to support their argument and they disregard the information that doesn't support their argument, or they belittle it, or they downplay it, or they use statistics to bend it and twist it. But yeah, so less break-ins. Okay, so what are we saying? Are we saying that during slavery, the slaves, they didn't do as many break-ins? Like, okay, well, they're like shackled to a plantation. First off, I mean, how are they going to be moved? Where are they going to be break? What? Come on, man. Like, that argument is so silly. So silly on its face. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And I don't know, like I say, when you have the predetermined idea in your mind, then stuff like that, you make excuses in your even in your own mind that it makes sense to support what you already, believe to be true.
Apparently, he was not going hard enough about the Epstein files.
I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration.
And maybe that had something to do with it. Now, we don't know, because we actually do not have an official motive yet. The FBI, which is doing their investigation, has not released a motive. They've released some information.
To my friend Charlie Kirk, rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla.
But even the things that they've tried to say make him look left, like the things that were scrawled on the cartridges, are actually gamer related, not left related. He was very online. We know that. We know that his family, according to his grandmother,
that part could be an argument, and it's like both sides seems like they have I'm gonna say a good argument, but they have an argument for that. I don't know, if you're going to make the argument that, it's anti-fascist, he was an Antifa, maybe, maybe. But it's the argument about him being conservative is a maybe too, just because your family is overwhelmingly conservative doesn't necessarily mean that you are. And it's like, what I don't like about that anyways is that nobody is exclusively conservative or exclusively liberal or whatever. Like, these terms, they do not encompassate, they don't, what am I trying to say? What word am I looking for? They don't really reflect the reality of the complexity of people, because you got someone may be conservatively conservative on social issues and liberal in economic issues. They might be conservatively economic and liberally socially. it's too complex to put people in those boxes like that. And on from one issue to the next, somebody can fall in one box or the other, as far as if you want to look at it from a binary perspective. So yeah, people are complex. And if you want to simplify things and make it look like it's one or the other, then go ahead. But you're not facing reality, you know, and your understanding of things is going to be blurred because you're looking at it through that lens. If people would just, you know, sanity is the issue, because we're talking about the State of the Union, right? The State of the Union is not in a good mental space. You know, watching that video on replay of this guy, you know, getting assassinated, you know, and the graphic nature of it, you know, we've been watching videos of these kids, these babies in pieces in Palestine, all down our timeline, you know, and right now I'm just talking about recent stuff and only a little piece of it. This has been happening for a good amount of time. So, you know, and then with the partisan nature of the politics, it's at a fever pitch, you know. I mean, it goes through these cycles, definitely, but we're definitely at the high end of a partisan, you know, fever pitch politically. You know, each side completely demonizes the other side in a way that I haven't seen since I've been into politics. Now, it's always been a certain amount of that, but the way it is now is really, really extreme, super extreme. So if you want to stay mentally healthy, you know, there's certain things you have to do. One of them, really important, is to be honest with yourself. Because if you're lying to yourself, like, who are you? Who wins out of that? You know, your mental health is going to suffer if you aren't being honest with yourself. You know, and it continues to deteriorate. It exacerbates itself. It builds upon itself, and it builds up speed, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, to the point where you can't see reality. It's like schizophrenic. You know, I always talk about society, and I'm talking about it in a way that I feel like, you know, our society here in the States, I really can't speak for the rest of the world, but they tend to create psychopaths or sociopaths. But as I've been thinking about it lately, schizophrenic would be better. That would be a better diagnosis of the mental state of a lot of people, because they're seeing things that are not there. They are not attached to reality. They have checked out. They have moments of checking out. It's like the cognitive dissonance they talk about. You know, certain subjects come up and you can see their body language, like they completely check out. You know, they're only partially there, and that's scary. I'm not gonna play any more of her clip because the
previously
maybe it's not her. Something's wrong with the audio, and I really don't know what to do about it. Let me see. Is that going to help?
We're very, very right-wing and very pro-Trump. So once again, MAGA, it'd be your own people. Y'all keep trying to say it's the left, but it's always you. And demographically, Ben Shapiro, the FBI says it's almost always a white male. Maybe y'all need to start looking into your culture. Just saying. Because this ain't got nothing to do with us or HBCUs that, weirdly enough, you peaceful right-wingers threatened with bomb threats again after.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, how does the HBCUs have, why do they keep catching strays, bro? Like, what is it with that? You know, people always, you know, they want to say when we talk about these topics, it's like, it's not about race. I'm like, okay, it's not about race. And I think that again goes to what I was saying about the mental health state, the schizophrenia or whatever, the tapping out of reality. Because if you really believe, now I think that on the surface, a lot of people, because you have your subconscious mind and you have your conscious mind. So, but subconsciously, you have to know, you have to know. Maybe you're not letting it reach your conscious mind, but subconsciously, you have to know that race is a factor. Like, it's inherently political. So, you know, the politics, especially here in the States, almost always, most of the time, it's going to have a racial component to it. And a lot of times that racial component is driving the outcome. It's driving the decisions that people are making about it. You know, that's just a fact of reality, man.
In ICE custody before he was released by the
This is a good example right here. Let me play this.
Biden administration. Anita, this story was almost impossible to read. The details were absolutely horrific.
Yeah, it's so horrific. And, you know, this is just an example of what ICE has been called to do. They have been called to go out to communities and arrest illegal, criminal, violent aliens. And these are the people who some on the left are defending. I mean, this is an example of another family that is left without a father tonight. They're left without a father, a husband, a brother, a son, because the life of this man was taken by someone who should not have been in the country.
An illegal alien has now been charged with murder after allegedly, beheading his 50-year-old boss and stabbing him multiple times. But the suspect shouldn't have even been allowed to walk free. He has a lengthy criminal history, including sexual contact with a child, and was previously in ICE custody before he was released by the Biden administration. Anita, this story.
Before he was released by the Biden administration. Like, it's a horrible story, no matter how you look at it, right? What is the benefit of the racial component? You know, why do they highlight stories like this? You know, how many other stories similar to this one has happened recently, or even the same day, possibly, of this one, where the racial makeup of the criminal was different, you know, and that didn't fit the narrative of what they're trying to say. You know, it's like the media, the legacy media, they like to cherry pick stories, right? Certain news outlets, they have their niche or whatever, you know, they have their narrative, they have their perspective that they're trying to present, and every story is framed within that perspective, you know, and even the story selection is shaped by that perspective. So they're going to choose stories to cover certain stories to, you know, further their narrative that they're trying to sell. You know, a good way to think about it is like a movie. You know, what happens in the movie, you know, the context of the characters and how they play a part Basically, you're in a specific universe that was created by the writer and the director, and the actors. And you have to suspend your belief. You have to narrow your perspective to fit within that universe. You're just enjoying the movie, right? It's not real. But the news, they do the exact same thing. It's, introduction, crescendo. What am I trying to say? The lead off, the little, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Forgive me. I'm a little rusty at this right now. The way the news do this news is the same way, you will put together a movie. Anyways, let's move on.
Like a capitalist every single day, Shank. I live as a capitalist. Okay? I live what I believe. No. What do I do?
I'm kind of tired of the clips, man. I'm exhausted with this whole thing. I'm exhausted with all of this. So tired, bro.
US President Donald Trump has issued an ultimatum to NATO allies, saying in a letter that the US will issue what he called major sanctions on Russia only when all NATO member states agree to do the same and agree to stop buying oil from Russia. Taking to social media, the US president quoted from the letter, saying NATO's commitment to win has been far less than 100%, and the purchase of Russian oil by some has been shocking. It greatly weakens your negotiating position and bargaining power over Russia. Anyway, I am ready to go when you are. Just say when. Trump's demands come as Russia embarks on joint military drills with Belarus, said to be testing the readiness of their armed forces, and as NATO launches a new initiative dubbed the Eastern Sentry at reinforcing the defense of the alliance's eastern flank. The operation is set to begin over the coming days, involving the UK, France, Germany, Denmark, and others. In an announcement on Friday, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte operation will add flexibility and strength to the alliance's posture and anti-Russian drones, a move described by NATO's chief as both dangerous and unacceptable. But the Secretary General also noted that this was not an isolated incident, adding that Russia's, quote, recklessness in the air along NATO's eastern. Donald Trump has.
Okay. It's all connected, right? Like France basically falling apart, the Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso cut ties, countries like Mali, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso are trading with BRICS, which includes Russia. And they're escaping the Western hegemony or whatever, the Western dominance. And basically a lot of that wouldn't be able to be done without China and Russia specifically. And that's where all the animosity towards China and Russia is coming from. And I think that a lot of people don't really understand that, but it's really not that complicated. They want to dominate certain regions. They want to take those resources and privatize them, get rich off of them. That's what they do. That's colonization or whatever, exploitation as empire. But they like to exclude certain countries or peoples or whatever, and they've done it. They've done it for a long time. And some of those other people, they're like, man, we want to make money too, man. We want to be good too, you know. So that's what's happening, and it's happening on a global scale. So you got the bipolar hegemony, however you want to look at it, where it's two main spheres of influence. You know, you got the Western Bloc, and then you got the BRICS. So the UK is falling apart. The UK is falling apart. The United States falling apart. So the United States, they still want to keep a real dominant space, you know. And so that's part of the reason why you got the things with Venezuela and the ships off of the coast of Venezuela and all of that, attacking the ships that they're talking about selling drugs and all of this. The United States wants to have control of the region. You know, the global dominance of the United States is over, right? So they need to solidify and shore up what they do have, and that's what they want to do with, you know, Central and South America for the most part, not Brazil, you know, but the Americas for the most part, and the Caribbean for the most part, you know, and that's going to be their dominant area. They'll have a few other little connections that they have, you know, but mostly it's going to be within this region. At least that's what it's looking like. That's the way they're thinking. So, the BRICS, y'all trading with us, and that's it. Like, you know what I mean? And we're going to use y'all resources as we see fit. And that's pretty much it. You don't have any say-so in it. Let's read this. It says, President Donald Trump has issued an ultimatum to NATO. President Donald Trump has issued an ultimatum to Russia only when they agree to do the same and stop buying oil from Russia. So yeah, you know, we don't want you to trade with them dudes on the other side. They're trading with us, and that's it. And NATO, y'all need to get in line. A more expanded war against Russia, a more hot war against Russia, coming from countries like France and maybe the UK, and I don't know who else, because the position that France and UK are in right now is they don't have a way out. They're screwed. So what do you do in that situation? You make war. War is profitable, and you know, who knows what's going to happen at the end. You might end up luckily coming out on top some kind of way. You know, you might end up getting some new property or whatever, some new place to get resources or whatever. Things might align in a different way to benefit you. You don't have nothing to lose anyways, because the ship is sinking. So you go to war. It's like, you know, you back a cat against a corner and he's going to be all over the place. You know, he don't have no choice. He's finna slice and dice as much as he can, even though he's losing. And that's what I see in the future, because I don't see any other way it could go. What do y'all think about that? the Charlie Kirk stuff is I think it's a zeitgeist of American culture, and depending on what happens next, it may end up being a really extremely significant event in the history of the United States. If there's a violent retaliation that, as a result, we already know what they're going to do as far as the government or whatever, shutting down. Another opportunity for censorship is another opportunity for censorship. They're not going to never let those pass, So shutting down people as much as they can online for speech and whatever they're sharing or whatever, slowing down streams, just like arresting people for speech. Yeah, it's kind of ironic because Charlie Kirk was all about, having the dialogue with the other side or whatever. And I think they're going to use his death as an opportunity to shut down even more dialogue, especially coming from voices that they don't want to hear, right? You can't trust the government to decide on who can say something and who can't. It doesn't matter what kind of government it is, because they're going to choose to shut down the ones that they don't like. I mean, it's kind of human nature. You can't give them that. But yeah, it could end up being a really significant event if there's a violent, reaction to this, which has been a few days now, and we haven't really seen much. I mean, there's been some things, but like some kind of major violent event as a retaliation for the death of Charlie Kirk, that would be. We already have a powder keg of a country, All it needs is a spark, and everything's just going to go downhill fast. People are struggling. People are living check to check. The damn grocery bills prices keep going up. Oh my God. You stretching it thin. You stretch thin. So that's on the financial side. And the emotional side, you have PTSD from the stuff that's just been coming down your timeline. It's only going to take a little thing to set you off, man. You're like I said about those countries as a whole, like it's the same thing. You backed into a corner, you already drowning. So you lash out. People, I used to do that. I was a swimmer in high school, and teach you how to swim, and they teach you a lot of stuff. Like if someone's drowning, they tend to flail, and what'll happen is a drowning person, the people that's coming to save them, they'll drown them too. You end up getting drowned by the person you was trying to save. They don't want to drown the person that's trying to save them, but they're drowning, so they freaking flailing, and they'll injure you, they'll hurt you, they'll pull you down. So it's like that, you back into a corner and you're drowning, so you flail, and that's like all you have. So it's like war, even against the one that's coming to help you, So I think that in people's lives, what they need to do is try to figure out where is the actual real help coming from, and what is the root cause for the situation that you're in. And, personally, politically, spiritually, financially, emotionally, politically, in every way. Try to really look at those root causes, and that's the reason why I like to focus on history, because you're gonna have to, if you really want to face the reality of your situation now, you got to look back. That's the only real way, you know? Know thyself, and to know thyself, you need to know history. You need to study it. Go back. Take a look. Re-examine it. Try to be about it. Them blowing up that boat was crazy. I thought that was some crazy stuff to do. Talking about it was narcos. I know it's a video here.
The President of the United States is going to wage war on narco-terrorist organizations. This one was operating in international waters, headed towards the United States to flood our country with poison. And under President Trump, those days are over.
He's just lying. There's no evidence of that. Why do you have a boat that size with one outboard motor and 11 guys to move drugs from the coast of Venezuela to the United States? That's literally impossible. You cannot cross the Caribbean in a boat that size. And the type of craft that they use for those type of smuggling, they either have it secreted aboard ocean liners and cargo containers. And if they have dedicated drug craft, they're typically submersible submarines. Real cartels like they have in Colombia are a lot more sophisticated than that. They're just saying, take our word for it. Everything that they say is a lie. Everything they say about Israel is a lie. These are not credible people. Who cares what Marco Rubio says to justify this act of terrorism? Look, we just murdered 11 people for you to watch on TV. Even if they were proved to be drug traffickers, let's say they have these guys on a cell phone intercept saying, meet us here, we're going to take the drugs there, which we haven't seen, but assuming that they had that and they could release it, you don't get to kill people.
Supposed to take their word for it. This wasn't even that long ago, you know, where if someone made a statement like that, they would have to accompany it with some kind of information. Like, you know, how did we get here to this point where, you know, we support people, you know, they're on our side, so we're just going to take their word for whatever they're saying, you know? Like, how did we get here? You know, what information do you have to back up what you're saying? Like, give us something. Like, come on. Like, we're just supposed to take your word for it? What data do you have? What videos, audio, I don't know, intelligence? What information do you have to support what you're saying? We're just supposed to take your word? You know, I feel like people are dumb. That people, you know, that you can't think. You don't have the ability to think for yourself. So we're just going to do all the heavy lifting and thinking over here. We'll tell you what we're doing or whatever, or why we're doing it or whatever. But as far as giving you data for you to come to conclusions on yourself, we're not going to trouble you with that task. You know, we don't want to make your life difficult. You know, we don't, you know, you got a lot going on. You got to pay bills. You got to go to work. We'll just do all the thinking for you. No, sir. No, sir. No, ma'am. I'm going to assume that you're lying. You're not willing to share the data. Say none were drug traffickers or members of MS-13. Venezuelan investigators confirmed the same. Meantime, the Trump administration still refuses to produce any evidence about narco trafficking claims. Yeah, where's the data, bro? We determine who the enemy is. And so whatever actions are done towards the enemy, you know, is justified because they're the enemy. You know, the data doesn't matter. It's like they're immigrants or whatever. They're on the water. You know, at this point, they're not immigrants. As the surface level thing and dig through the details to come to any really, you know, reality. There's some comments. It says producing no evidence before or after an unprovoked attack. Wow, they sure are one and the same. Can't see. The U.S. government and the Trump administration are not to be trusted for our vicious acts on Venezuela. Another comment that says, where's the source to this info? That's actually a good question, because they're talking about, it says family members of 11. Yeah, do we have some video or audio or some written accounts of family members that was killed on this boat? Like, we didn't even know who those people were at all anyways. Like, how can somebody know that was their family members? Maybe their family members are missing now and they haven't come back. But still, it could have been something else. Were they the ones on that boat? How do you know? Information. You know, so people just pulling stuff out of their butt, and we're supposed to just go with it every time, and that's not what's up. X account, and it's been abandoned. So that means that they didn't find this tweet on there. Another comment. So, and when that didn't work, Utah. Oh man, these conspiracy theory deals. Now, there has been distractions. You know, from the Epstein files or whatever, but not about Utah. So they orchestrated the whole thing that happened. May have been behind it or whatever. You know, I can't go with any of that until there's some kind of evidence to support it. You know, just because I ain't gonna lie, Netanyahu's comments after it did seem kind of like kind of sus, and did make me feel some kind of way. I ain't gonna lie, his comments was weird. But hey, that is not enough. That's not evidence or whatever. Either way, you can't just be like, oh, that's what happened. Like, what do you have to support that? Like, this is where you go down the road of insanity. I mean, you know, it could be true. It could be true, but like you people, they're so confident in something that nobody knows. You go to the experts. That's what I be talking about all the time too. Like some guy that's been studying a certain specific thing for years. Like he dedicated his life to study this thing. And then you watch like a 15-second reel and now you argue with that guy thing, you know? You know, talk to a Secret Service member or whatever, somebody who works in intelligence or something like that, somebody who works in think tanks or whatever, like, and they're likely to be like, well, we don't have any data, so I mean, it could be true, but we don't have any data, so, but your speculation is it's a waste of time. We need to focus on the things that we do know. Reggie, on these conspiracy, it feels a certain part of you, like it passes the time. It distracts you from reality, like a TV show or something. Like, what are you accomplishing from doing that? From focusing on that stuff that you don't have no information to about it. I don't get it. Says I hope I live long. I ain't gonna lie. You never know. Something like that may just happen. The stuff on the H. So weird. Charlie Kirk gets shot. They start sending bomb threats to the HBCUs. What is the connection? Maybe there wasn't a connection anyways. Maybe the threats on the HBCUs was something that be happening all the time. I wonder about that.
About Trump trying to take over the Federal Reserve. Well, if you care about lower prices, this matters to you. So let's break it down. The Federal Reserve is America's central bank that helps safeguard our economy. Its leaders are supposed to be independent from the president. That's because the Fed's leaders need to listen to data when they make big decisions about our economy, like what our interest rates should be. But when a president takes over control of central bank, then the Fed, the data, and costs go up for everyone. Mortgages, credit card interest, student loan payments, you name it. How do we know this? We've seen it all around the world.
You know, I'm conflicted about this particular topic because, you know, I think that it should be separate from the president. Conflicted about this, you know, the Federal Reserve is a private bank, you know. So where do their interests, what are they accomplishing? You know, what are they trying to do? Are they looking out for the American people? So, you know, it's created and then privatized, and that's just weird. So, but if you have the government can do things that may not be in the interest of the people either, you know, depending on who's in charge at the time. So again, I'm conflicted on this topic. I guess whatever economic system you subscribe to or prefer is where you would probably fall on this topic. But then people talk about socialism and communism. So if the government is in control of the federal bank and it's no really, you know, it doesn't, it you know, has like executives or whatever that makes the decisions, and instead of them, it's the government. Wouldn't that make that communism? Would it? Because that's one of the ways you define that, right?
Places like Turkey and Argentina. And we've seen it right here in America with Richard Nixon to take on for someone to blame. He's been threatening the Fed chair, attempting to illegally fire the Fed board members, and now by trying to install his White House chief economist onto the board. The problem is, this guy he's trying to install is a Trump puppet.
And that is what's happening. You know, he's been surrounding himself with loyalists and people who just want to please him. These people are scared to tell the truth to him too, because they get axed. You know, if they tell the truth, if it goes against what Trump is saying, you know, or what he wants to believe is true, and jurors or whatever, you know, fire these people, whatever. The job numbers come out again. Oh, they're lying. It's the Democrats. Da 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 da. And it's like, bro, you know, certain amount of it, you can be like, you know, I'm just coming into the administration. I need some time to turn these things around. He did say some stuff like that, though. But he's not going to get good information from the people around him. And he doesn't want good information, you know. And that is scary. That is because that means that he's going to be making decisions off of bad information, you know. So what are the results going to be? Like, you know, if you got a plan, you want these specific results, or these are what you intend for the results to be based on this information that you've been given. And then they tell you what you should do to get to those results based on this information. So the chances of your outcome or your intentions being anywhere close to what you intended on them being is very low, because your data is bad. So, like, it doesn't matter how you look at it, it's bad. You know, if you're a supporter of Trump, don't you want him to be successful at the things? So then in that case, then you want him to have good information. You want to have the best information, you know, even if it goes against what Trump wants to hear. But people are afraid. They're not going to do it. Administration, you know, kiss the ring. The South Park episode was so funny when they were bringing him gifts, and they were treating him like he's a kid. And somebody made the joke like that's what they treat Trump like. But the South Park episode was so funny. It was just a line of people outside of, you know, coming into the White House to meet with Trump, and they love him or whatever. It's so crazy, man. You know, it's funny, but it's scary at the same time. Like I say, you know, you're being easily manipulated. But maybe he looks at it like, you know, I know these people don't care about whatever the hell or whatever. Like, they don't really like me or whatever. I don't know. They're kind of crazy, you know. You got these people just trying to tell him what he wants to hear, give him gifts, make him feel good about himself. And maybe they do that for everybody. All politicians and all leaders around the world. I don't know. But anyways, the South Park episode was hilarious because they want favorable deals, and that's the reason why they're coming with him or whatever. And then he gives them whatever deal. Really good information, because he'll fire him. It's crazy.
Words, Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. And now he's refusing to resign from his current White House job, meaning he intends to serve as the president's chief economist and as a supposedly independent governor at the Fed, both seriously, make tough trade against the president. Does that sound like it to you? But Senate Republicans are still pushing him through. And it will be our economy and American families who will pay the price with higher costs. You may
Decrease in interest rates, right? Is that what they're talking about coming up? A lot of talk about the home prices, you know, and the inventory. We know it's overstocked inventory, empty houses everywhere. There's a look, and I could see like 3 or 4 empty houses, very nice houses. No one lives there. And it's been like that the whole time I've lived here. So, you know, that thing about scarcity, you know, if you want to make money, you want to increase profits by those prices. It's kind of like the COVID thing. You know, when COVID happened and then they said they had supply chain issues, so they had to raise the prices. COVID ended and those prices, they did not go down. You know, people buying the homes, hopefully they can get people to buy homes or whatever, but all price down because the interest rate is important. People are looking at, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people going to be looking at the interest rate or whatever, making a decision about buying a house. So I'm not saying that that's not true. Period. Put that interest rate up higher and lower the price, and you automatically got more sales. Extremely simple. They're making these houses, these boxes, and charging $400,000 for them. That's crazy. That's crazy. So many hands in that pot. So many hands in that pot. Making a killing. And I'm going to talk about, so lethal inject the homeless people, you know, lock the poor people up, you know, pay them a livable wage. Nah. You know what I mean? Help them get housing. Nah. All these empty houses, leave them empty until we can make that money. Even though we're not making nothing, well, they can write it off on their taxes and stuff like that. But it's still, you know, it's not about the money. That's what I come to the conclusion about all the time. You know, at the end of the day, it's not about the money because you got these freaking money. Like, you're not making nothing while it's sitting there. You want the $400,000, but there's nobody to pay. You already had to pay up front. I'm sure building costs and so forth and so on. You act on your investment firms, you know, they got houses all over the states. So they're not looking at it in an individual per house perspective. They're looking at it through their portfolio. You know, some of them are selling, hey, we're making money. But you can make a lot more money if you was moving that inventory. You know, margin that they don't want to move on. You know, they've made these whatever, man. That's why economics is political, and people want to say it's not, but it's just math or whatever. No, it's political, and that's why I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't study that. I was an anthropology major. I'm more on the humanities side. You know, the statistics, the way that you can bend those statistics. You know, the economic theories are based on, I'm trying to find the right words. It's not just, let's see, somebody played that clip of, I think that was on Fox News when they said, they're like, it's $1 billion we've given to homeless people. They're not going to do right. And the other guy was like, yeah, man, just lethal inject them.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population.
In Germany, the start of the...
There's such a little bitty clip. Let's see if we can find it. It's the, 1 second, y'all. Is this it? 22 seconds. I think that's it. Hold on, y'all. They changed the way we do this. Oh, I could have had both of them open at the same time.
They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you got to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
So let me play it again. Hold on.
They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
You're either going to take the, you're talking about billions of dollars. You know, where's that money actually going? And either take the money or you're going to go to jail. So, but that makes it sound like, you know, you've got people out here giving homeless people money or something. Like I don't really see that very much. You got people that has done places that have done the housing first initiative, and the data shows that works. You know, the numbers. You know, regardless of what he's saying, though, you know, there's going to be some margins of people who aren't fitting in that stuff. So it's like, just lock them up.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them. Or injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why?
Or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Voluntary
why did it have
injection.
to get to this point?
Right.
Comfortable saying that. It's you know, they've dehumanized these people so much. They so commonly dehumanize people. So, you know, there's a lot of people that are homeless and they don't look homeless or whatever. Like the projection, the prejudice, or the predetermined idea of what a homeless person is. You know, is not somebody who's sleeping in their car. Is not somebody that works at Target or Walmart and then goes to a tent. You know, it's not the person who's in hotels and motels all the time. You know, it's not the person that's crashing on the neighbor's couch or their friend's couch. You know, so that's how they're able to dehumanize people. You know, it's the crazy guy that's asking for change on the corner, or you know, trying to clean your windshield or whatever. You know, the person who's sleeping outside in front of the store, you know, during the day when you're trying to go to Walgreens or something. And, you know, I honestly, I don't know, because these people are so detached from reality. I have no idea what the hell they see or the way that they think or what the hell, because you can get on TV and be comfortable saying you can do a lethal injection for homeless people is something I can't imagine. I can't imagine being comfortable saying that. Like, saying it at your home and with your friends and family is one thing, but on TV, like, we're at a dangerous stage where you got somebody on TV to feel comfortable enough to say this. Let me play it one more time.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't.
And billions of dollars to mental health, I don't see that at all. Like, and then you're lumping them together, you know. And every time, like you know, the school shootings, we had school shooting the same day that SK was assassinated. And every time, you know, guns don't kill people, people kill people. You know, and we need to invest in mental health. And it's like, where is the money that's backing up what you're saying? You know, where do they have like mental health opportunities for people in school? You know, do they have trained professionals on site at the schools to give children, teenagers, students, you know, sessions or connect them to doctors to get medications or whatever is needed? You know, what about the programs to give the teenagers stuff to do, you know, after school programs type of stuff? You know, they don't want to invest in this stuff. And then, you know, you got crime, you got homelessness, and your answer to that is to just euthanize them. That's crazy. Talking about billions of dollars for mental health and homeless. Where is that money, bro? Is that actually true? I don't see it.
Want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice.
A lot of them don't want to take the help that's necessary. You know, what about the ones that do?
Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this: we're not
And the
voting
prison
for the right
industrial
people.
complex is, you know, that's a problem. And that's, you know, so, you know, you don't want to solve your problems, then you monetize them. You find a way to monetize your problems. You know, it's going to be crime. You know, it's going to be immigrants. You know, it's going to be homeless people. So you know, you monetize it. You find a way to monetize it. And sending them through the prison system is a way to monetize it. Doesn't fix the problem. And then people, you know, the regular folks, they don't have to look at them. So they're like, well, we don't see it. So we like that. It's better. We know the problem wasn't solved, but we don't have to look at them. Anyways, y'all, I don't know how much more I'm gonna do. Let's see.
The war marked a change in policy towards the mentally sick and handicapped. Hitler himself signed the secret order to start putting them to death.
Why should we spend money for a fool, for a hopeless, ill person?
A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
In December
1931, my mother had been sent to the clinic for nervous diseases in Frankfurt am Main because of depression and anxiety about her husband. Marie Rau's mother was eventually diagnosed as an incurable schizophrenic. Without her family's knowledge, she was brought to the Hadamar Psychiatric Clinic, which became a center for killing the mentally disabled. They were led to the cellar and killed with carbon monoxide gas, up to 60 at a time. Over 10,000 in Hadamar alone. Next door was a crude operating slab where brains and organs were removed for scientific research. The Raus were told their mother had died of complications from warts on her lip. They only learned the truth years later. The fact that these people were murdered is a disgrace for our whole society. Some Germans dared to protest publicly against the euthanasia. The gassing was stopped. But killing by injection and starvation continued secretly.
We feel so compassionate because you see the mental health crisis happening.
Exactly.
But it's not our job. We shouldn't have to live in fear while they figure out what's going on right there.
Right.
Put them in a mental institution, put them in a jail, and you guys figure it out.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them. Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population.
In Germany, the start of the war marked a change in policy towards the mentally sick and handicapped. Hitler himself signed the secret.
Yeah, man. Like I said, it's a blight on the whole society. You know, there was a time where they did have more, a little more than, well, they had mental health facilities and there was a lot of people there and they just released them, funding ran out and they just let them out. They're downtown right now. This happened some years ago in my city. It's our society, man. We got to do better. The thing about they say the shooter was dating a transgender. I don't know if that's true, but I don't even know how it's relevant either.
Why did the perpetrator shoot Charlie Kirk?
He said he believed that Charlie Kirk was spreading hate and was a traitor to America.
Doesn't that automatically make him a Democrat? How did he get caught? Did the police find him?
His dad saw the pictures online and said, "This is you, son, isn't it?" And his son didn't want to admit it, so his dad had him talk to a minister, and then he admitted what he did to the minister.
So did the minister turn him in? What did he tell him?
He told the minister he did it, and then he said he didn't want to be alive anymore, and he was considering unaliving. So at that point, the minister and the dad brought him to the police station, and that's how he was recovered.
If he thought these awful thoughts about Charlie, doesn't that make him a Democrat by default? I knew it.
He was actually a Republican, and his entire family were Republicans. He was raised by them and raised with guns since he was 5 years old. He was actually something considered a graper and liked to.
But didn't he have weird writings on the ammo, and that's why everybody thought he was trans?
He did have engravings on the bullets. They were just troll words and nothing.
So he was just a troll. What source do we have that was his actual reason for the Charlie Kirk incident? Saying he thinks Charlie Kirk was hateful.
Because he told his family this before he did it, and he told them that he didn't like him when he found out Charlie Kirk was going to be at the Utah event.
But how did the shooter know he'd be at Utah University?
Because he attended Utah University. He was a 22-year-old with a 4.0 GPA in the electrical engineering program.
A 4.0? Gee whiz. What was his ethnicity? Are you sure he wasn't trans at all? It seemed like all of MAGA kept saying he was trans before we found out who he was. I was 100% sure he would be.
He was a straight white male.
That was the last thing I would have expected. Never in the history of mankind would I have guessed that. Does this mean people were angry at trans people for no reason?
At the end of the day, what he did was awful. And sometimes it's not best to jump to conclusions and wait for the results, because unnecessary hate is bad for everybody.
Why did the purple...
Unnecessary hate bad for everybody. Yeah, man. Looking for a reason to hate somebody. Looking for a reason. It's scapegoats. It's just you don't want to face the reality of your life. So you just looking the other way, you know? Let's look at something else. Let's find somebody to blame. I wonder what happened. If they are successful at what they're trying to do and they get rid of like literally all the immigrants, you know, they get rid of all the trans people, you know, they make abortion illegal throughout the country. You know, they make Christianity the official religion and put the 10 Commandments in every classroom. You know, then everything's gonna be good. What are you gonna do about the Native Americans and the black people? Let me read some comments. It says they're currently buying that he was living with the trans partner roommate and was radicalized. Bruh, he lived in a pro-Christian home with his parents. Another comment says, don't Republicans know there's more than just Democrats in the world? That's the thing. Like this bipolar, this what a binary way of thinking about everything is a problem always. Like it's either Republicans or Democrats. It's either left or right. You know what I mean? Black or white. The reality is things are more complex than that. And if you simplify everything down to that, then you're not going to be seeing reality. Another comment says, nah, because 33 hours of literal representatives calling trans people animals and how they've had enough of us and how they were going to start killing us in the streets, dead silence, once they find out it's one of their own. Another comment says, agreed, Lewis. What are your thoughts on the people in your comment section celebrating his passing? Says God sends his mightiest warriors to the hardest choices. Another one. He was a groyper, guys. A groyper is an alt-right, white nationalist political movement led by Nick Fuentes that thrive on mainstream media memes to spread their hate. Yep, it's a lot about that. I don't know much about that culture and all of that, so I'm not going to really comment. I don't follow that stuff.
A Fox News alert. FBI sources tell Fox News Digital that the man charged with assassinating Charlie Kirk was living with a transgender partner. Bureau officials confirmed that Tyler Robinson was in a romantic relationship with someone transitioning from male to female. They say that individual is fully cooperating with their investigation, claims to have had no idea of Robinson's plans, and is not currently accused of any criminal activity. A Fox News alert. FBI sources tell Fox.
Yeah, just what they wanted to hear. Where is the where's the information that I'm sure it'll come out. I haven't seen anything though, other than these comments like this. Caption that says, just in, Charlie Kirk alleged assassin Tyler Robinson was in a romantic relationship with a transgender partner. FBI sources tell Fox News Digital. This partner is fully cooperating with law enforcement and not currently accused of criminal activity. We need more. I guess showing a picture of the person would not be good. But we need more. We need more. Give us more on that. That's what it is. But again, what I said earlier, it's like, how does this really impact the situation? Why does it matter? Like, what does it have to do with anything? What are you trying to say by saying this? Comment says, LOL, yet the liberals were trying to paint him as a Republican because of his family. His family was Republicans. Open your eyes, people. It's not red versus blue. It's humanity versus insanity. The liberals were trying to paint him as a Republican. So he's not a Republican if he's dating, if he had a roommate, if he was with a trans person. So that's what it is. That way you can disown him. You can say he's not part of your deal. So, but what if gay LGBTQ people are Republicans or conservatives, or none of them are? Do you have any that vote for your president or whatever? Like, we don't claim them.
There's a shooting at a synagogue, it is very likely to be either a white supremacist or a radical Muslim. If it is a shooting of a Republican politician, it is very likely to be a trans Antifa Marxist shooter.
That is just not true.
We
don't know what this kid is.
We do know this kid was of the left. We do know that.
We do know what?
That this kid was of the political left. That is according to contemporaneous reporting from The Guardian as well as Tablet Magazine today.
It's 2 days out. We don't know shit, Ben.
But
we don't know shit. They never do. The internet is undefeated in getting it wrong to begin with.
It's not about the internet. That's about the actual reporting by mainstream accepted. The Guardian is not a right-wing.
Here's what we heard. Here's what I was told so far, and I'll tell you what was wrong. First, I heard he's a registered Republican. Not true. Okay. Then he was a donor to Trump. Not true. His father works in the sheriff's office. Not true. There was a picture of him wearing a pro-Trump shirt. Not true. Member of the Democratic Socialists of America. Not true. We don't know what he is.
Well,
how are you so sure he's of the left? Now, I agree when you write on a bullet, what did he write on the bullet? Catch
this fascist, which is also a gamer thing.
Okay, but now I'm hearing he may have been part of that group for whom Charlie Kirk was not right-wing enough.
You mean the Groypers? Yes. I mean, so that would.
You're sure he's not that?
I'm not sure that he's not that.
A minute ago you were sure what he was.
Hold on, Bill. Hold on. Okay, because I've been.
You were.
There's a shooting at a synagogue.
Comments. It says, "How is a picture of him existing wearing a Trump shirt is not true? Bishop Barrett debate skills when his opponent is old enough to buy a beer." What they do all the time is they distract and obfuscate and deflect and pull stats out of their ass and Bible quotes. People in this country, it's not about the truth. It's right. When someone's debating, it's like who won and who didn't. Like, oh, you got owned. Was it actually true? The person who won the debate, were they right? Did the person lose the debate, were they right? Where were the facts? Fact check the debate in real time. And then you got people arguing on the facts. That part bothers me so much. I don't know. You can't reach anyone who is willing to disregard the actual facts. It's like alternative facts. What the hell is an alternative fact? And each person don't have their own truth. There's only one truth. That's a reality, and that's it. Inside reality, outside reality. There goes a binary. I don't know. Maybe you could be right there on the edge of reality and not reality. But I think that's a binary right there. Maybe you don't even you can't even call it a binary. It's a unan. How you say it? Unary. I don't know. It's only one. There's only one. You know, there's only one reality. There's only one truth. You know, you can say there's multiple universes. They all fit within the reality, the actual reality. Says, dude, watch Kirk's YouTube with Ben the day before he died. Imagine still watching Bill Maher. I haven't watched a Bill Maher. I mean, I used to watch Bill Maher, but it was probably like 15, I don't know, a long time ago, like 10 years. Back when I wasn't aware of life. No. I can't watch that. It says Bill Maher makes some sense. Sheesh, days are bleak. Yeah. I do this so anyways. Another comment that says, why does it matter? Why do these guys want to pit fellow Americans against each other? Whose agenda does it serve? It sure doesn't serve the average American. And that's why I named this the State of the Union, because at the end of the day, you know, and the United States is made up of immigrants. And we could talk about the history. We could talk about colonization. We could talk about slavery, Jim Crow, and all of that. And it's definitely a part of the story. But today, we have different groups of people living together. The State of the Union, it's a union, the United States. It's you know, technically it's probably multiple countries within a country already, you know, but somehow we find a way to be together as one country. And if you guys want that to continue, then we need to continue to find a way, you know, to work it out to the point where we can be one country. Okay. It's going to always be different peoples and different perspectives and different ideas and different politics. Always going to be that's always going to be the case. But the strength is in the unity. You know, you want to continue to enjoy your protection. Like there's you know, things can be worse, right? Things can definitely be worse. They can continue to get worse. And our protection comes from the unity of the country, you know. So your neighbor is not your enemy. Your neighbor is not your enemy. Your neighbor's going through the same thing you're going through. And you just need to internalize that, regardless of what your neighbor looks like, regardless of what your neighbor's politics are. You know, we're all going through the same thing. And we just need to find a way to keep the unity, you know, keep it together. You know, one thing I have to say about that, though, if you are disputing my humanity, if you don't look at me as a human, there's no way to find a middle ground there. You know, there's no way to have unity there. So then the one that you're looking at as not a human, the problem isn't with them. The problem is with you. And that's where the change needs to happen. You need to see them as a human, because they are. They're not something other than human. They are human. And humanity, you know, we are social creatures. You know, we thrive in groups. And that's what has brought us to where we are today, as far as basically the dominant species on the planet. You know, that's how we got here. The disunity, the fighting, the you know, you're in the bush and you're running from some predators or whatever. Somebody gets hurt or something. You help each other. You know, it's a drought and there's not much food. And we're talking about in the bush. We're talking about early humans back in the days, right? You help each other. You share the food. And that's how, because you knew that your strength was in the different groups. I mean, the different peoples within the group. The smaller their group was, the less strength it had and the less durability it had. You know, you have somebody who knows how to do this, you have somebody that knows how to do that, and somebody who knows how to do this, and y'all work together, and that's how y'all survive as a group. If they was like, oh, that person is a Republican, or that person is LGBTQ, you know, well, we're excluding them from the group, you know. Now, somebody that knows how to do a certain thing is missing. Somebody that knows how to do another certain thing is missing. And now the group perishes. Y'all starve in the forest or something. You know, that person that got injured that y'all didn't help passed away, and now the group dies because that person had an intricate knowledge about, you know, something that was important for the survival of the group. I know y'all understand what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that this way of thinking is not good for the species. It's not good for the survival of the species, and it's going to lead in the opposite direction. You know, there's been many species that has come and gone in the history of Earth. Okay, you know, and you know, we like to look like we like to think that we, you know, I don't know, been here forever, we're indestructible or whatever, but it's just not. It's not the case. I mean, you look at the history of the Earth, and this, you know, look at the dinosaurs. You know, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees. You know, and for us to be able to have durability and to be able to survive, then we have to find some unity. We got to find some common ground. We got to find that common humanity. I think that's good. I think we're going to wrap it on that. Peace and love. Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for joining.